It's that time of year again to gather with our families and devour an endless smorgasbord of delicious dishes that have been carefully prepared by our loved ones. What better time to discuss a rather obscure subgenre of films from the 80s, the cannibal comedy? For our appetizer, get ready to chow down upon Paul Bartel's cult classic Eating Raoul from 1982. For the main course, we will dine upon the obscure and little-seen Lucky Stiff from 1988. And don't forget to save room for dessert, for we will devour the dark comedy classic Parents from 1989. Join us for laughs that are hard to stomach on this month's episode of My Dad's Video Store. All right, so we are recording this right after the presidential election, where all of our greatest fears came true. So many of us just feel like we were hit by a truck, and we are utterly shocked that half the country was willing to elect an authoritarian who's also a convicted felon, a blatant racist, misogynist, and a homophobe. How our show evolves to meet this newfound moment in history is up in the air at the moment, but it is something weighing on all of us. Waylon, Gray, how are you both holding up?
You know, I've been operating on a steady diet of sugar and CBD gummies, and what are you gonna do? It was horrible because I had this horrible sinking feeling about a month prior to the election that it might not go our way, just based on the way that the Harris campaign was running. And I went, oh no, because, I think running on Trump as a fascist was a mistake because the people who were going to vote for him don't care. I'm really sad, but I wasn't super surprised, I guess is where I'm at.
I feel exactly pretty much like Waylon does. I sort of allowed myself to fall into a sense of false hope. But at the same time, I had that sort of lingering knowledge in the back of my head that almost too little, too late, as you can see, I'm just stumbling over my own words. Don't even know what to say. Apart from, there's nothing left now after having a couple of weeks of just pulling your hair out and bashing your head against the wall. Now all we can do is figure out how and what we do to fight back.
Yeah, that's really the big question, I think, of how do we fight this? They're going to try to systematically take over so many aspects of our government. That's what they said they were going to do, which is, to me, really what's shocking, that people would be aware of that and would vote for it. Because, how many people died to give us a republic, and then for us to just kind of flush it down the toilet like that. I am somewhat comforted by the fact that, there's a whole fucking lot of us that are not happy with the situation. And I think there's a whole fucking lot of us that are not going to take this standing down. And that's kind of my hope at the bottom of the jar right now. So we'll see. We'll see how it all goes. We'll just take it one day at a time. It feels like a friend died. Yeah. At the moment, it does. That's the feeling. But the funeral is for the country you've grown up in. So it's pretty insane.
And there's a lot of very smart people right now already devising plans involving almost militant obstructionism. So I sort of start thinking about that, and even taking some pages out of the GOP playbook and start using it against them. The type of tactics that they've done for years that we consider unethical. Yeah. It might be time to turn it around on them.
Big time, yeah. The Democrats have been playing checkers. They've been playing Machiavellian chess.
Right. And it might be time for some lawfare on a level that just, an obstructionism on a level that's just, unconscionable would have been to us before all of this. But all bets are off now.
Yeah, no, we have to protect what little bit of rights and freedoms we have, I think. So I think any card should be on the table.
Including cannibalism.
Including cannibal comedies. So I do have some good news to share. I got into a really great film festival called Another Hole in the Head.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
The Red Hourglass is screening there on December 8th at 3 p.m. So folks in the Bay Area, please come and check that out. Speaking of film festivals, though, Joining us to discuss these fine cannibal comedies is the founder and director of the BizarroLand Film Festival, Stephen Stull. Stephen, how are you?
Hey, it's a mixed bag. I'm going through a similar week as you guys, so I'm trying to enjoy what I can enjoy before the real crushing malaise sets in. Yeah, I'm doing all right today. We're gonna go. I'm gonna go medicate myself with tiki drinks tonight.
Nice.
That's what I've been doing.
Yeah. We're all self-medicating at the moment. So, well, Stephen, could you tell folks out there a little bit about yourselves and as well a little bit about the BizarroLand Film Festival?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am. What am I? I don't know. I had to write a bio recently for some festival or something like that, and I don't really know what goes into the bio. I'm a filmmaker. I make weird movies, and that's why I created the festival, because I wanted a festival that was just like totally dedicated to weird movies, and I couldn't find one around here, so I was like, screw it. I'll do it myself. I can figure this out. How hard can it be to run a film festival? So this is the 9th year of the festival. 2024 is the 9th year of the festival, and I'm still, I'm making new mistakes every year, and I feel like that's progress right there.
For sure. Well,
that's great.
Congratulations on having run the festival for 9 years. That's an achievement unto itself.
I appreciate it. I haven't done like anything in my life for 9 years. So I'm pretty impressed with it.
Same. Except make films. I think that's maybe the only thing I've just done consistently, but not like just all the time. I was checking out the BizarroLand Film Festival, and first off, you have one of the coolest trophies I've ever seen. And for folks out there, it's this tentacle that's curled up. And, a la, an H.P. Lovecraft Cthulhu demon or something.
Yeah, it's excellent.
Could you talk a little bit about some of the wild awards that you give out during your festival? Because I was reading this on Film Freeway. I was like, okay, these are amazing.
So the award is called the Sickie, and it's the curled tentacle, and it's like dangling a little pair of panties off the edge of the tentacle. It was originally designed by a friend of mine named Brad Bailey. He's a 3D designer, and he designed this for me. And then every year after the first year, it's been sculpted and painted by hand by a couple of artists here in Orlando, Paul and Deborah Berg. I'm very happy to have their work. But the first couple years of the festival, I tried to do the best this, best that stuff, best performance, best picture, best writing, whatever. And I did that for, I don't know, maybe 2 years. And then we saw this movie. My wife and I, my wife Jen, we watch all the movies together. And we saw this one movie. It was a short film called Lovesick by a filmmaker named Cassandra Seckler. And it's just two kind of bizarre alien bodies in a black void space, gyrating suggestively in fluid, and it was fantastic. It was totally fantastic. And at the end of we were watching this, Jen turned to me and she said, should I be horny right now? Like what And so that inspired me. That movie plus Jen's comment inspired me to like, I don't have to do best this. Like, this is a weirdo festival. Let's just dive into it. So I started doing, based on that movie right there, the very next year I created the weirdest boner award for the movie that makes you the most upsettingly a sexy feeling. And that was just the floodgate. That was just the opening of the floodgates. I decided, instead of looking for, like, say, the best performance, I'm going to look for the most out there kind of memorable weirdo performance, like the most Nick Cagey sort of unhinged. Once I got rid of best, I unshackled myself from the tyranny of best, the naming the awards started becoming a lot of fun. So like, the performance award is now called the Mink Stull Award because, I love Mink Stull and everything she does.
Yes, love that.
and there are some awards that pop up every year just based on like the movies that come in, but others were like really inspired. Like one year, a couple years ago, we had a whole slate of movies that were just gorgeous, like really bright colors and really strong colors. And we just came up with, hey, well, let's give an award for the best use of color. And we'll call that the Lisa Frank Award. So we got that one again this year. We got some good color awards. Nice. And then there's like, one of my favorites is like, I like to give the Brown Acid Award for the movie that kind of makes you feel like you're on a bad trip. This year we got one. This year we got the Misophonia Award for the most upsetting sound design. There's some really gross sound design in some of these movies. I'm really happy about it. But basically, I just like they always kind of grow organically out of the submissions I get this year. So like if there's a lot of great sound design, I'll make an award specifically to focus on that. And if there's great music, I got a bunch of movies with great music. I'll focus an award on that or something like that. It's funny to me to watch filmmakers after they won an award. They go out on social media and then they try to explain the award they just got, and they'll always do something like if I did, we did the Brown Acid Award was all animated films one year, and then the winner that year I saw they posted on social media like, hey, we just won the Best Animation Award. And I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. That's cool. It's easier that way.
Whatever you got to tell yourself.
Whatever you want to call it. Like, if that helps you explain it to your family, okay, cool. It's fine. Just make sure you tag the fest. I'm happy.
I would wrap myself in your award names. Those are so good. I love the creativity. Yeah, because it's you see almost all festivals, it is the same thing. It's like Best Director, Best Film, Best Score, and like you're having a lot of fun with these awards, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I would be so overjoyed to get one of those awards.
Yeah,
the only award I've ever gotten that I even cared about was most horrifying bathtub time. That was an award that I actually got at the Romford Film Festival in England, and I was
That's
like, "Yep, that's the only one I ever cared about."
So I got a couple of like WTF awards from some of these festivals, and I guess I just spoiled the joke of the story I'm about to give. But I had a film that went to a festival in Brooklyn called the Bad Film Festival. Which, I don't know, do you brag about getting into the Bad Film Festival?
I think so.
Yeah, I bragged about it. I bought 2 of their t-shirts, But I got this film in, and they gave me an award. They gave me this award they called the Welcome to Florida Award. And I swear it took me about 4 years to realize the hidden joke in Welcome to Florida. And I went, all right, genius. I get it. Thank you. And it made me feel a lot better. It's the WTF.
Yes.
Okay. Just like, it took me a while. I'm not...
Nice. That sounds like an amazing festival. I encourage folks to submit to it and keep your eye on it because it's coming up next month.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, wow.
All right. Well, without further ado, let's dive into these crazy cult films of our own this month. So we have 3 delicious cannibal comedies coming to you, and let's dig into our very first film, Eating Raoul from 1982.
Meet Paul and Mary Bland.
Hey, you 2 live in the building. You must swing, right?
Wrong. Good night.
We're so lucky to have found each other.
A typical American couple.
I know. Good night, dear.
Sweet dreams.
With a typical American dream. And typical American problems.
You are through at Clay Liquor.
Mr. Leach, I'm sure the bank has nothing to worry about. It's going to get everything that's coming to
The
it.
bank wants to see what it's getting into.
With the Blands, life was just a rat race.
A cartoon mouse.
Oh, great. Trigger likes you already.
Oh, we like B&D, but we don't like S&M. We met at the A&P.
But they found a way to beat it. Until
Mr. Raoul Mendoza, como está usted?
they met a hot-blooded, emotional, crazy Chicano.
I'm a hot-blooded, emotional, crazy Chicano.
Eating Raoul. Is it a thriller? Is it a romance?
This was very wrong.
Is it a tragedy?
Excuse me. May I sit down?
Is it a comedy?
Yes, but not the type that you're used to.
Eating Raoul, rated R.
Waylon, can you synopsize Eating Raoul for our listeners out there?
I can. In fact, I just finished watching it this morning. So it's fresh in my brain.
Classic Waylon fashion.
That's right. Last minute.
But you didn't save a stinker this time. Yeah.
No, I watched them in reverse. I watched the worst first and then the best one last, which is to say I love Eating Raoul. I've actually seen Eating Raoul before. So this is a nice chance to revisit it. But Eating Raoul is about two lovable psychopathic snobs named Paul and Mary. They're both working class. Paul works at a wine store. Mary is a nurse, and they live in Los Angeles right at the tail end of the sexual liberation era. And they are fairly almost asexual, and so they're horrified that there's all these orgy parties always happening in their apartment complex. One day, a guest at one of these orgy parties drunkenly stumbles into their apartment, and through a series of circumstances, they end up killing the guy. But he's got a lot of money in his wallet, and they start to think maybe this could help solve our financial problems, and then we could finally open the classy restaurant that we've always wanted to do, so they can pair it with all the wines that Paul knows about. So they begin targeting swingers and murdering them for their money. They eventually end up hooking up with a delightful locksmith, Raoul of the title, who starts to help them dispose of the bodies, but things begin to, of course, escalate wildly out of control. Eating Raoul is super funny, great black comedy. It's an indie film of the way that they do not make indie films anymore. It's scrappy. It's got a lot of personality. It almost feels like a New York film that's been shot in Los Angeles. In fact, Amy and I both always forget it's an LA film until you're watching it and they say stuff like, oh, I got to go to Ralph's and pick up some cheese for the wine party and shit. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about Eating Raoul. It's one of my favorites. Amazing cast too. Paul, played by the actor Paul Bartel, who's also the writer and director, who also did Lust in the Dust with Tab Hunter and Divine. Yes. He did Death Race 2000 and Private Parts, not the Howard Stern Private Parts, but a fairly obscure 1972 film, which if you haven't seen, you should track down because it's kind of like one of those, once you see it, you can't unsee it sort of a movies. Yeah. And his partner, Mary Warnoff, who is also an amazing bohemian lifer, I would call her. She is an actress. She's a painter. She was one of the Warhol superstars. She was a dancer in the Exploding Plastic Inevitable, the light show they used to have with the Velvet Underground. And she is great. And she was actually in Night of the Comet, actually right along with Robert Beltran, who plays the locksmith Raoul. And you might also, if you're a Star Trek person, would know him as Captain, was it Chakotay? I'm mingling it. I don't watch Star Trek, but he was on Star Trek Voyager, basically. And then various people pop up, too. We've got Ed Begley Jr. shows up as a hippie who's got one of my favorite lines. What, you think I'm an uncool dude? An unhip daddy?
Yes.
And there's a swinger party where one of the swingers is the secretary from Ferris Bueller.
Edie McClurg.
Right. Edie McClurg, yes.
Her little cameo is priceless.
It's my favorite line in the film. So. They're into doggies.
Doggies, yes. I love the host of that party, too. He's got the worst sexual pitch ever, which is, I'm big as a post and warm as toast. Like, what?
So many good lines. Well, Waylon, that's amazing synopsis. Spot on with that one. So, Stephen, what did you think of Eating Raoul? I'm sure this is probably one you've seen before, but what did you think on this revisit?
I love Eating Raoul so much. I have seen it before. I enjoyed it so much. It's like you said, Waylon, you said it's the kind of movie indie movie that doesn't get made before, and I'm so glad you said that because I feel like we've entered. I don't know if it's always been this way. My memory is skewed because I've only been alive as long as I've been alive, but like I feel like we've entered this phase where if a person makes a movie that takes a position, right, then we all just kind of have to believe that the filmmaker themselves take this position as well. It's like how Randy Newman. I'll get somewhere with this in a minute.
I know where you're going. I do love Randy Newman. So
Randy Newman made that song "Short People," where the chorus is "Short people got no reason to live," and he got like hate mail and stuff. People saying, "What the hell's wrong with short people?" And to him, it's obviously a satire, right? But some people just don't really grasp satire. So what I love about Eating Raoul is, it takes place in this world. Like Paul Bartel and Mary Warnoff themselves, huge counterculture figures, right? Like you said, Mary was one of the Warhol superstars, and like Paul Bartel was a huge figure in underground movies and like counterculture movies. They decided to make a movie centered on a couple of like conservative prudes, right? And then they built a world that the conservative prudes believe that they live in, right? Like in the mind of somebody who's, you know, sort of terrified of the world that they live in, there's all sorts of deviant sex parties going on behind every door. And even like Raoul's character, Robert Beltran's character, I will say to anybody, you know, younger than 40 who might watch this movie, it's gonna rankle your sensibilities a little bit. But if you can kind of step back and see what the filmmakers were saying, like Raoul is what white conservative folks at the end of the free love era believed Latino men were like, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
you know,
Exactly.
he's like fiery and hot-blooded, and he's lusty, and he's
there to steal your
duplicitous,
wife.
and he's there to steal your wife. Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So like, I love the way that Paul Bartel wrote this movie to take place from the mind of these conservative prudes, and then manage to still slip in all the satire, because even though these two people are on the surface, you know, the Blands is their names. I think you probably said that, Paul and Mary Bland, which is pretty hilarious. But even though they're so prudish and conservative and incensed by all this stuff going on around them, they immediately take to murder without blinking an eye, right? They just not a moment's hesitation to start just smashing people over the head with frying pans. And Mary's character has a sexual awakening. Like Raoul comes on to Mary and she resists for like a second or two, and then just like immediately dives into the sexual relationship with him. And you kind of think, you know, is she gonna ditch Paul and go with Raoul, because that's what he's saying? You come with me, you'll live in furs and never have to work and just raise my babies and stuff. And but by the end of the movie, I think one of the genius moments of this movie is that, you know, her character, despite the fact that he got her smoking Thai sticks and got her having sex at work and things like that, her character is this conservative prude at heart, and she loves her husband. So at the end, she's like, no, like, clearly I'm not going to go off with you. I'm going to stay with my husband. We're going to open our restaurant just the way we've always been doing, right? I love it. I love it so much.
Yeah, totally agree.
I got to throw in, by the way, my mother actually wrote Randy Newman an angry letter, because my mother is short.
Oh, man. Okay, so real fast, and we don't have to like get into this or anything, but real fast, I had a buddy of mine educate me on the short people. My friend Jimmy told me that Randy Newman had put out a record called, I think, Good Old Boys, where he was... Yeah. Okay, so you're familiar with it. Yeah, so he put out this record, Good Old Boys, for anybody who doesn't know, and it was done in the voice of a racist Southerner, right? The whole record was like basically sung by this character of a racist Southerner, and so afterward, people kept calling Randy Newman himself this huge racist, and he's like, guys, it's storytelling. This is how it works. And so he made Short People after that as kind of like he's like, well, come on, you guys have to understand there's limits, right? Nobody's going to listen to the song and think that I actually hate short people. And then lo and behold, nope, sorry, Randy. We'll find a way.
That's such a great album. If anyone hasn't heard it, the song Guilty on that album is the best thing to listen to if you are by yourself at a bar at like midnight. Wondering where your life went wrong. Guilty.
I expect a few more nights like that. More nights in the upcoming year than I had in the last year.
Yeah.
Did you all ever see the Bizarro TV series that Randy Newman did called Cop Rock? It was like,
oh my God, yeah,
oh, wow,
oh, yeah.
Yes,
a musical about cops.
Cops. Yeah. It's so bizarre. It's truly amazing.
It's one of those things that you look at it and you're like, how did this exist? Like,
yeah, it's one of the strangest artifacts. I think it was around the time when Fox, like as a network, just launched, and it was an early show that they launched with. They had like Alien Nation. They had a show of Alien.
Oh yeah,
I remember that.
I think, Alien Nation, I watched that show religiously.
It was a pretty good show, actually.
But I think Cop Rock was actually the dude behind Hill Street Blues and all that. What's that?
Yeah, I think it was Hill Street Blues and
legendary
Randy Newman brainchild.
Yeah, we're falling down the Cop Rock rabbit hole.
You know, forget the movies. Let's just talk about Cop Rock.
Okay, this show is now officially about Cop Rock. All right.
That could be a series where we watch all of Cop Rock.
Yeah, we discuss each episode of Cop Rock as we go. There's the spinoff that we've all been clamoring for.
No, we're not going to do anti-fascist films. We're going to do Cop Rock.
No, we're just going to do Cop Rock.
Let's discuss Cop Rock. That is how we will meet the time. That is how we will meet this moment in history. Gray, what do you think of Eating Raoul? I think you and I have talked about this movie in the past and stuff, but what were some of your fresh thoughts this time around?
Oh God, man! I mean, come on, yeah. I don't know what I could say that everyone hasn't, but of course, I love this movie. I will lead with this since we've already discussed Chopping Mall. That now, having seen Eating Raoul again for the first time in a while, yes, of course, it can be confirmed that is Paul and Mary Bland in the beginning of Chopping Mall.
Yes, absolutely. Yes,
they are, and of course, they're there watching the presentation of the Killbots, considering buying one for their restaurant, which
Paul and Mary's Country Kitchen. Yeah,
I love both the idea that the Blands and Chopping Mall are definitely now canon. They exist in the same universe. Yes. And that they're considering getting a Killbot to protect their store, which means that it could kill potential thieves trying to break in and could even maybe cook their bodies with their lasers that they could then feed to the patrons, or they could eat themselves. It's great. I just love that whole thing.
You have to wonder, because there was going to be a sequel to Eating Raoul, and it was it was almost going to happen, and then Paul Bartel passed away, unfortunately. Yeah. But you have to wonder, was a Killbot going to be in the sequel?
But yeah, and like everybody said, particularly Steven, just the dynamic of the post Free Love and Mary Warnoff and Paul Bartel being such counterculture figures and queer icons portraying these honestly kind of lovable conservative characters who you are rooting for, even though they are the bad guys, who they do keep going back to who they are. I particularly like that that killing swinger perverts is like the closest thing they can get to having sex with each other. Yeah. And Paul can only bring himself to kill somebody if Mary fakes like she's in real danger. And her faking like she's in real danger is almost like her faking she's having an orgasm. Like just the way it all builds up it gets funnier every time. And Bartel, at least in this movie, is kind of like John Waters in some ways, where the main gags they start to get repetitive. Like the gag is kind of the same over and over, but it's never not funny. And it never doesn't ramp up and become new in its own way. So that's not a problem. It just gets crazier and crazier. And also on the Ed Beagley thing, I was like, no one would ever buy him as a would-be hippie rapist nowadays. Can you imagine? No. And it's just one thing after another. The sex shop scene. Oh my God.
The sex shop
I couldn't breathe from just laughing. Trail mix flavored lube.
Trail mix? I'm fucking with you.
I was just at a sex shop, but like Paul Bartel, not for any kind of a kink. I needed stuff for this film project, and I had it was almost the same interaction, but except it's Portland, so it was like super all positive vibes. I came in and I said, I'm making a horror movie and I've got a character with a tail. What's the cheapest strap-on holder I can get so we can attach
it? Perfect.
They were great. They gave me O-rings. They gave me 2 strap-on holders. And when I said we need the tail to move, and I'm wondering if you have any kind of a small vibrating thing with like a rhythmic motion to it. And they were like, oh, I've got just the thing. And they went and they gave me a floor model dildo with a little stimulator piece that they've been trying to pawn off on somebody for years, apparently. These guys are great. I gave them my card. We're following each other on Instagram now. Thanks, lovers of Portland.
Yay! Special thanks.
It's fantastic.
Props provided by Lovers of Portland.
They did supply us with a lot of our props.
And there's this one great little moment in the opening narration talking about how perverse LA is.
Yes.
And it just gets there's just so many great moments. And I love that the ending, like the culmination of perversity is somebody putting ketchup on like an ice cream float or like an ice cream.
I was about to mention that was the most horrifying thing that happens in this whole movie.
Why would you do that to yourself?
It's a milkshake. He's like putting
a whole bottle of ketchup on top of a milkshake. I'm just like my wife and I both yelled at the screen when that happened. We were so upset. It's like this montage of crime and perversity and then here's a milkshake. Oh, that looks good. What's going on? Oh no! Oh God! Stop! No.
Yeah, that was the Dennis Quaid with shrimp and the substance of this movie. If
Oh,
I haven't seen, yeah.
Yeah, real visceral gut horror reaction to that. Oof.
Yeah, it's a masterpiece.
Yeah, huge fan. I read, and you know, the trivia section of IMDb is dubious a lot of the time.
Yes.
But I choose to believe this one. I read that poor Edie McClurg didn't even know that the people behind her in her scene were nude. Like, because she's facing away from, like, there's this, you know, sex party going on behind her while she's trying to talk Paul and Mary into joining her and her husband, right? And apparently it was a surprise to her when she saw the movie and saw, like, these naked people behind her. That was, I want to live in that world. That's the world I want to live in, where that is actually true.
Yeah, it's probably apocryphal, but yeah, I like that idea.
We like B&D, but we don't like S&M. And we met at the A&P.
We met at the A&P. Oh. Genius.
It's so weird. I sincerely was actually hoping that she actually is like a sexually liberated woman, and this is actually what the real Edie McClurg is like. It was just where I was living.
I think it's such an easy choice to take her and put her in the Ferris Bueller secretary role. However, she really shines to me when because I mean, she's in this movie, she's in Eating Raoul, and then her turn in Natural Born Killers is pretty upsetting. So, like, I feel like she's probably got, you know, a vein of.
She's amazing in Carrie.
Right. Yeah, she's great.
She's a treasure.
National treasure right there.
Absolutely. Waylon, did you have any other thoughts about Eating Raoul?
I didn't have any other thoughts, just a couple other little things I loved that we didn't get to touch on. Anyone catch the quick John Landis cameo as he bumps into Mary Warnoff at the bank?
Yes.
At the bank, yes.
I love the dominatrix that helps them out with getting their sex ad in the paper. He's actually got like a kid at home and stuff. She's a loving mom.
She's feeding the baby while she talks about golden showers.
right.
And excuse me, I got to do the laundry. Yeah, it's amazing. Just showing dominatrixes as actual boring ass normal people and in their everyday life, which is true.
Which is how it is.
Well, that would be like some insight that Paul and could bring to the script, right? Like, because if it really was conservative prudes writing the script, they wouldn't know. They don't know what the life of an actual dominatrix is like. You know, I read, and again, this is another thing from IMDb trivia, so take it with a grain of salt. But I read that in 1982, at that level of like technology availability, it was actually cheaper for them to run that ad in the paper than to mock up a paper.
Yeah,
with the ad in it.
And so the LA Weekly, I think, that they ran in.
Oh, that's got to be true. I mean, that makes total sense. Yeah.
And they only got one call.
One response.
One response. One person contacted them.
I mean, there you go. That's exactly, you know, the moral panic of what a disgusting, perverse world we live in. There's your answer, man. You put that ad, we'll do anything. You put that in the LA Weekly and only one person responds. Come on, we are not living in a Caligula-esque depraved sex pit of hell. That's just not this is not what's going on, you know. Sadly.
I really, really want some Gallos Mexicanos Prophylacticos. I really I want that. I want some on my shelf.
I have a note that says that. Make sure we mention, the Gallos Mexicanos. I also actually really liked the Spanish cover of Devil with a Blue Dress.
Oh, Los Lobos.
Right up there with the Plugs doing Secret Agent Man and Repo Man is like my other all-time favorite Spanish cover.
Yeah, there's so much I love about Eating Raoul. I've loved this film for a very long time. My dad had it in his video store, so I watched it there. But it used to be up on USA Up All Night.
Oh yeah,
all the time. And I would watch this in different chunks so many different times. If it was on and I was at home late at night, I would watch it from wherever point I started it. So I've seen this movie so many times. What I was amazed by, having not watched it in probably a good 20 years, was how funny this movie still is. This movie is timelessly hilarious. And it really is like a cousin to a John Waters movie. It feels like a John Waters. It has sort of a similar sense of humor, but it has like almost more, as you said, like a bourgeoisie kind of approach to it. It's so good. There's so many great cameos in it, from Buck Henry playing sexual assaulting bank
manager,
loan officer,
Mr. Leach, I think.
Yeah, to
Mr.
Ed
Leach,
Begley Jr. Yeah, Alan Rich is in it. He plays the Nazi. He's a longtime character actor. He is in my absolute favorite episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is the one with the survivor at the I don't know if you guys remember that episode where they invite the Holocaust survivor, and they also invite the guy who was on Survivor, and they get mixed up.
Oh God, that's right.
It is one of the funniest fucking things I've ever seen on TV. It's so good. There's so many good bits. I mean, like the part where they're like, the person comes over with the dog. Do we have to kill the dog too? Probably, otherwise he might lead someone back here. Some of the sex acts, like the one with the pirate chasing the Minnie Mouse, and it's all shot from this low angle.
I had kind of a weird awakening during that scene. I'm not in a hurry to explore it personally.
I didn't know this about myself until I saw Eating Raoul. So. Dawn Steele's cameo. Dawn Steele, of course, is also the prominent sort of host in previous Bartel film, Death Race 2000. He's also like the voice in Gremlins. He's doing the radio voice because that was his original. That's where he came from, was radio and stuff. And he's Howard Swine, the horniest host, with who sung with the most. And he's fantastic in this.
We don't have that anymore. Like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but like, we don't have that in radio anymore. Even the morning radio, even the morning zoo crew, like that classic 80s radio voice, the rock guy running through a list of a litany of quick rhymes and stuff, like that's just gone. It's just people.
Where's our Wolfman Jack or something?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Clear Channel murdered that, and it's
Yeah.
Big time.
Oh,
big
God,
time.
Clear Channel.
It's a shame.
Yeah.
And Paul Bartel is such an interesting figure to me because, he kind of came out of film school. He got this job making Private Parts, which Waylon had mentioned. And then he did Death Race 2000, which was this kind of a bit of a hit in a way for Corman. But after this is the run that I love, because he did like Eating Raoul. He did Scenes from a Class Struggle in Beverly Hills, which is really underrated and everyone should go check that out. And he did Lust in the Dust, which was talk about John Waters adjacent. It reunited Divine and Tab Hunter and stuff in this great Western. And it's so funny.
That's actually how I became a Paul Bartel fan, is I saw Lust in the Dust first because I was already a John Waters fan. And I was like, what is this movie with Tab Hunter, this Western with Tab Hunter
and Divine.
Yeah, actually, I had seen Lust in the Dust because my dad bought that when it came out in his store, and then Eating Raoul was like one that he got later, like in a box of a bunch of movies he'd buy. Mm-hmm. So, but I think I'm the same. I saw Lust in the Dust first, which we'll hopefully discuss on this show if we ever do our Westerns episode.
Excellent.
There's not much to cover that hasn't already been said. This is a hilarious film. For anyone that has never seen this, please go and find this. And check this out. It is truly wonderful. It's just truly a marvel. Everything about it, I love. Any other parting thoughts about Eating Raoul?
I wonder if I could, like, I think I might have like a Bartel-esque quality to me. Maybe I could revivify the sequel 50 years later.
Yes.
Maybe
Let's find that script.
It's fine. Right.
Let's track it down.
Let us know. We'll be there to help.
Yes, absolutely.
I'll definitely send you the Kickstarter for sure.
All right, folks. Well, so Eating Raoul can be streamed on Max, and it's also part of the Criterion Collection. I think that's a first on our show. I think this is the first Criterion Collection film we've discussed. All right. Well, from a BDSM-themed dog chow crime ring to an overweight fellow becoming the main course at a cannibal Christmas dinner, it's time for Lucky Stiff from 1988.
When the creator of Police Academy and the director of Psycho 3 put their heads together, there's only one way to describe the results. A comedy.
If anyone here has reason why these two should not be joined together. I don't think she understood the question.
Yes, I did.
About a big guy
He's not with anyone. He's alone.
No one?
I have no one.
and a beautiful girl.
I bet your bed is small.
I told you he was perfect.
And when she brought him home for the holidays,
Don't lose any weight. Not enough.
What if your parents don't like me?
I guarantee you they'll eat you up.
Chuck twisted plate ribs. Loin sirloin round round.
they made him feel like one of the family.
Gee, your hand's freezing. Better get some gloves before it falls off.
But there was something strange about them.
I'd like you to meet our guests for Christmas dinner.
Will he discover their secret
We love people. We know how good they really are.
before supper time?
How does dinner look?
You look delicious.
I'm not a guest. I'm the buffet.
Lucky Stiff.
Nothing a cold shower and a rub down with steel wool wouldn't cure.
Gray, can you please synopsize Lucky Stiff for our audience?
Hey, yeah. So I think this fascinating movie is, I think it's out of all of them, the only one that's fully about cannibals and also fully a comedy, like both at the same time. It is weirdly written by the guy who wrote the Naked Gun movies and the Police Academy movies. And
Croft.
yeah, and also weirdly the second and last directorial effort of Anthony Perkins, and we all know who he is. The movie's about a sort of overweight sad sack named Ron Douglas, and he's not a loser though. He's got a good personality. He's kind of funny. He's like John Candy meets Wallace Shawn, and the movie starts with him getting stood up at the altar by his wife but he takes it in good stride and decides to go on his honeymoon anyway to Lake Tahoe, to a ski resort, which again, we're at a ski resort in these
Hot
in an 80s
dog.
movie. Speaking of which, Lee McCluskey's in this movie. So right back to Hot Hamburger, the motion picture. We can't get away from anyway.
No. I wish we could. We can't escape Hamburger.
So he goes to Lake Tahoe and tries to enjoy himself. And while he's there, he bumps into Cynthia Mitchell and her brother, Ike, and we find out, now the movie tells you this. We as the audience know that they come from a family of cannibals that are out scouting for a victim to turn into Christmas dinner. We know this. As the audience. Ron Douglas does not. So that's part of the gag of the movie. So basically, she seduces him, brings him back to the family, who are a bunch of inbred. We also know this. We know this from the beginning of the movie. They're a family of inbred cannibals that want to make Ron Christmas dinner. So hijinks ensue, or as Waylon once hilariously said in a synopsis, hilarity is attempted. This movie throws everything at the wall, and when you throw everything at the wall, only about half of it sticks. I'd say maybe less than half of it sticks this time. But there is some really weird stuff, from like wells in a toxic waste dump to a suicidal kid who thinks he's a ghost. And some of the weirder stuff works. But man,
The cow. Sorry, we'll get to it. Sorry.
We'll get to the cow,
we'll get to it. But yeah, so is he going to survive? Is he not? I don't know. This is a thing, man. It's a thing, and Norman Bates made it. So
It is definitely a movie.
yeah.
And it was a movie.
And it was a movie. So there you go. That's a Lucky Stiff. And there are a lot of fat jokes, but they're not as mean as you think they might be. In some of the other movies we've talked about.
Yeah, not quite as mean-spirited as, say, Hamburger the Motion Picture.
Well,
Oh my God.
that's a low bar.
I don't think a lot of this would fly today, a lot of the jokes, but it's not from the meanest place.
I hate to do a quick digression. You can delete this if you want, but I'm just so glad that you're all aware of Hamburger, because I was sure that this movie was some kind of fever dream from my youth, because I saw it on like HBO when I was a kid, and then before Google came along, like it just disappeared. Every time I would talk to somebody about that movie, they'd be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And now I know, I have verification that movie does exist. I didn't imagine it. It was insane. I'm so glad. Thank you very much. That's it. Okay.
Only ever released on VHS.
Hamburgers for America.
Oh my God.
Man.
I can't believe you've actually seen that. Our friendship with Brad was hanging in the balance there for a minute.
I inflicted it on a friend of mine, and then we talked about it, and he was like, how did
Yes. How did this ever come to pass? Yeah, it's oh God. Gray, that was an amazing synopsis. Spot on, man. Waylon, what did you think of Lucky Stiff?
Oh man. It's I'm trying to be kind too. I don't like to talk too much smack, but it's, you know what it is? Here's my take on Lucky Stiff is I don't think it's inherently conceptually awful, and I could see a director with more experience under their belt pulling that off. Because at the end of the day, it's almost like So I Married an Axe Murderer or something along those lines. You know, it could have been kind of a cute, charming, slightly lightfully morbid comedy. But Anthony Perkins isn't really a comedy director, and comedy is a very hard thing to pull off, even if you feel like you have good comic timing. And so at the end, it just becomes kind of this weird curio. You can see what they're going for, but it's not really landing. Even the lead, who I actually thought was quite good, Joe Alasky,
Yeah.
you know, I thought he was actually quite engaging, and until about the halfway point when I realized what he's actually doing is Rodney Dangerfield.
Yeah.
The whole film.
Just one-liners nonstop.
Yeah. Although that guy actually, he is a Mel Blanc successor. He had a voice acting career. I mean, Jackie Gleason actually, which is cool. Yeah, so it's a curio for sure. I actually fell asleep at a certain point.
Took me days to watch this.
And it's one of those perfect movies to fall asleep to and wake up to and go, I don't know if it makes a difference.
It doesn't.
I'm confused.
That's what you got, Waylon? That's a.
I think that's what I got. What do I have? I have notes
Waylon's
here.
wisdom.
Right. Oh, I like this note. Attempted homicide in the world's biggest bowl of pudding.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, I'm actually always for torturing children with pudding, but you know, that's just big major.
Thank God you're the only one here who has a kid.
Yeah.
And
not my own kid, but you know,
that kid's mom was a cameo by Lynn Shay, because of course New Line distributed produced this. So yeah. And I was like, oh crap.
Well, and then Amy pointed out too, Ike, one of the cannibalistic brothers, was in a really great episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh, Jeff
he's
Kohler,
the one that sold all the magic, the illicit magic to Willow in season 6. Yeah.
Also, he's in. Isn't that the guy from the first Power?
The X-Files and Millennium as well. But yeah, he's got that. He's got one of those faces that when you see it,
he's freaking great in this movie. That scene, the scene in the butcher shop is hilarious, where he's like just menacing him through the. I loved that. I was like,
I gutted 200 chickens before lunch today.
Yes. When you first meet him, yeah.
I did like one. There was at least one line that made me chuckle, which was when the I think it's the brother who thinks he's a ghost is eating deodorant.
Yes.
And he offers one to Ron, and Ron says, he goes, "You want some?" He says, "No, I'm an Aqua Velva man myself."
Yes.
That was pretty good.
And when he was eating the deodorant, I turned to AE and I was like, oh my God, this reminds me of something out of Mother's Day. And the guy's named Ike. And he's a hillbilly.
It's like multiple ones of them named Ike. There's Ike the third.
Oh, Ike the third, Ike the fourth. And it turns out like, oh God, yeah, they all come from the same pair of siblings.
Yes, yeah.
Honestly, Ike the third tried to kill himself a couple times, so they let him think that he succeeded. So now he thinks he's a ghost, and he's like floating. He's feeding mashed potatoes.
That was hilarious. That was
the
funny.
best part of the movie.
Yes, that was a really good, funny bit. And that's classic kind of Pat Proft. I can talk quite a bit about how important Pat Proft is to 80s comedy and stuff. But yeah, I mean, from Bachelor Party to Real Genius to
that's absurdist. Yeah. And Real Genius, arguably one of my favorite 80s comedies movies, if not my favorite.
Also, another less sung one, Moving Violations, which
Moving Violations.
That's also
I
Pat Proft. So I mean, the ones he's known for are Bachelor Party and Police Academy, Hot Shots, and of course he collaborated with the Zucker brothers a lot. And the big thing he's really known for is the Scary Movie series.
Am I absolutely insane, or did Moving Violations have like a zero gravity love scene in it? Am I making that up? Is that a hallucination?
Oh God! It's been so long. I haven't seen that since I was a kid. But I think it might have. That I know. I'm the scene you're
That's
talking
the kind
about.
Of thing,
I have seen. So yeah.
But like the couple, the humans go off to one side or something, and then the camera follows like their shirts and like
yes, and the shirts start caressing each other.
Right.
Yes.
The sleeve of the guy's shirt goes like inside the sleeve, the opening of the woman's shirt. Oh man, I gotta dig this up. Anyway.
Well, speaking of digging things up, Stephen, what did you think of Lucky Stiff? I think this was the one you had not seen.
This was the one I had not seen. I think this was a form of karmic punishment for me. I'll tell you why.
That was the original name for my show. But,
I watch a lot of movies for like my festival. I'm also on the selection committee, one of the selection committees for the Florida Film Festival, which gets 1 million submissions. So like I watch literally hundreds and hundreds of short films every year. And I always tell people, like, you get kind of numb really fast. Like if there's a movie that's good, okay, fine, whatever. Here's another movie that's good, yeah, fine, whatever. You get kind of bored with just decent movies really quickly. And so I tell people that I would rather watch just like a spectacular flaming failure than a movie that's, good. Like, pretty good, whatever.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah.
Mediocrity is death. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Yeah,
like
either be terrible, really terrible, or
really bad,
Yeah.
And so I was watching this and I was fascinated by it. I can't, I don't think I'll ever probably watch it again. But you called it a fascinating artifact, and I think that's great. About halfway through it, I pulled up my phone. I'm sorry. I usually hate to do that. Hate people who do that. But I pulled up my phone and I pulled it up on IMDb, and I saw Anthony Perkins, and I said, wait a minute. Really? Yeah. Really? And so I went and looked, and holy shit, Anthony Perkins, Norman Bates directed this movie. It is like a train wreck. Like it is so much misfire. Like everything just goes, the movie that you think it is in the first 10 minutes is absolutely not the movie that it becomes in the last 10 minutes. The style of humor changes so drastically and so quickly from scene to scene. Like I think one of my early laughs, one of my biggest laughs was when Jeff Kober, Ike, grabs Ron's butt the first time he sees him. And we know that he's sizing him up for eating, right?
Yeah.
But it's the 80s and a guy grabs another guy's butt. So Ron grabs the nearest waiter, because they're in a restaurant, and he says, or concierge at the hotel, whatever. And he grabs the nearest guy and he says, excuse me, do you know where a normal man can get himself a Playboy? Right?
Yeah.
So I thought that was funny. And then it just goes into such strange places. There's like a giant Hatfields and McCoy shootout between two inbred hillbilly cannibal families at the end.
One of which, because Ike had been selling him the good stuff, had been selling human meat to this other family.
Right,
so they turned the other hillbilly family
into
cannibals, almost like drug addicts. And now they're Hatfield and McCoy feuding over who's going to eat Ron and whatever her name was, Francis or whatever. And I was like, that's fucking amazing. It was just not pulled off in any way that worked.
I think Waylon, you said, I think a director with some more experience or some more familiarity with this kind of material might be able to pull off an actual weird, absurd comedy classic. My first thought when I watched it was, or after it was over, was, take the script, strip the comedy out, give it to some of the new crop of, hardcore eye roll, elevated horror filmmakers, and you can make some kind of, but that would be, we've seen that, right? We've seen that before.
Or then maybe do that, but then give the script back to a comedy director.
Right.
Like an exquisite corpse movie.
It kind of looks like an exquisite corpse movie, is it? Because like earlier, there's such different types of comedy in this thing. Like early on, you mentioned the scene where Ron tries to smother that kid in pudding, right? It's because the kid makes some kind of fat joke about him, can I have your autograph, Porky Pig, or something? And it's like,
yeah.
all right, this is fine. This is relatively sane. And then later, and I don't know, I apologize if anybody had this on their list to talk about. I'm going to break the seal. Later, Ron is standing around alone in the rival cannibal family's thrift store, country thrift store, which is full of artifacts from people that have been eaten. And he's waiting while Francis, the other victim, by the way, this sentence is going to sound like I'm having a stroke. He's waiting while Francis is trying on a red dress, and he finds a mechanical cow with functioning udder suckers, and he picks them up for no good reason, and then they start flailing to life, and one goes down the back of his pants and one goes down the front of his pants. And meanwhile, the mechanical face of the cow is like snorting, and its eyes are rolling, and its like little mechanical tongue is sticking out. And I'm going, what the fuck is happening?
It's honestly some Hamburger the Motion Picture movie type
seriously,
shit. It's
seriously. Yes. And then it's not long after that. It's the shootout between the two rival families. And I want to say, like, I hate to be, I get accused of wanting movies to be too realistic, and that's not true. I don't really care if a movie's realistic. I'd like it to have internal consistency. But one minute, like one scene, everyone is at this deep snow-covered ski lodge in Tahoe. They have a whole date scene, like Ron and Cynthia. They're riding in a horse-drawn sled. They're walking around in the snow. Like there's a bit where she steps into some waist-deep snow or something, and he has to help her out like a gentleman or whatever. And then they hop into a prop plane, a two-seater that Cynthia flies, of course, obviously. And they fly, and then they drive a truck. And then, like, for some amount of distance, I don't know. But then, like, the rest of the movie, they're in
Griffith Park.
They're Griffith, yeah, exactly. They're in the California mountains, and there's not a single snowflake that falls from the sky. This is supposed to be Christmas Day, right? This is supposed to be the day they have Christmas dinner with the family, and I'm just, I don't know. Jen was like, well, they did fly in a plane. I'm like, yeah, but how far? It's a little two-seater prop jet. Like, they're not gonna. Oh, God. Anyway. It is so hard for me to wrap my head around the entirety of this movie. Like, I can take it in pieces. I can look at little individual pieces. And, one thing that I thought was absolutely hilarious, the fact that this came out, like, just before the end of the 80s, I guess, like, the big reason Ron is the ideal pick for them to cook for their Christmas dinner is that it's the end of the 80s and everybody's so obsessed with fitness that there's no fat people left.
Yeah. She's like, it's been so long since we've found anyone of Ron's stature because everyone with their health clubs and their gyms.
Like what an outlook.
I know. I did appreciate that. That was
like in the 80s, we thought, fatness will be over by the end of the century, right? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. It's
a weird one. I'm glad I watched
LA
it.
Thing. So,
right.
Yeah. Waylon, any other thoughts on Lucky Stiff?
Sporadic random notes. I did like with the McCoy family rivalry. They meet the one guy who's missing his leg, I think, and he has that great throwaway line. They gave me the taste, and now I'm eating myself.
Yes. That's where you first meet him, I think. Yeah, he's like, Ike, you gave me a taste, and now I'm eating myself.
And then they never go back to it.
Cynthia's mom lost her hands, like fed her hands to her kids, I guess is the implication. And so they cut off two of the other family's hands and sewed them onto hers. And that's why she's really excited about this one woman, Frances, who, Jesus, trying to synopsize everything in this plot is going to be impossible. But she's like, she's got such pretty hands. And so there's all these like gags about this woman, the matriarch of the family, having big, manly dude with hands,
eagle tattoo,
and the eagle
That's
tattoo.
How you finally know.
Oh, man.
And of all the like weird moments for suspension of disbelief, but I was like, wait, these people are also like master surgeons. Like, how long did they keep their hand on the ice first? Wouldn't the nerves be dead? Yeah, I was confused.
Surgeons and airplane pilots and skilled butchers and
And again, like both Stephen and Waylon were saying, if you had somebody who was a more masterful comedy director, you could have structured it in a way that we, the audience, would have been like, I don't care about that. Like, I don't care that we don't. This movie's so funny or so well done that I don't care about all this shit. Yeah.
It almost felt a little bit like a lesser version, and this is a low bar, of the Dan Aykroyd film he directed.
Nothing But Trouble.
Nothing But Trouble.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. Speaking of spectacular misfires.
I'm gonna admit it. I actually like Nothing But Trouble.
I like moments. I mean,
another strange artifact. It's kind of so bad it might be good. It's
I am still 30 years later or whatever. I'm still haunted by the scene of Dan Aykroyd in makeup eating a hot dog. Like it's so upsetting.
Yeah,
I can't.
With his penis nose.
With his penis nose. Yeah, exactly. Oh.
Every time I eat a hot dog, actually, and that's my ritual now. Is I like to get I put on a prosthetic penis nose, and then I put on the first Digital Underground album, and I just go to town.
The bacon dance.
Did you pick it up at that sex shop that Portland?
I wish I'd known about them before. I would have saved a lot of money.
Sir, that's not where you put the harness.
I've got it on my desk right now, in fact.
I'm never far from it.
That's right.
No. Under my pillow when it's not there.
Good luck strap on. Gray, what are some more of your thoughts? I know you mentioned a bit during your synopsis, but what other thoughts did you have on Lucky Stiff?
Yeah, I think in the synopsis and everything I think I pretty much got it across. But I mean, I also think I might have liked it a little more than most of you guys, but that's not because of it being good by any means. But I think it was just when we watched it last night and post-election and everything. And so I think it was just kind of a dumb brain cleanser, like a steam bath for the brain, and just sort of switched off. But a lot like Waylon was saying, falling asleep, and Steven was saying, liking it in bits. That's sort of what we did. When it petered off or got really stupid, or even toward the end when like the kung fu fight was happening in the swing.
The rakes. God.
Yeah,
the rakes.
I was like, really? Rakes?
The sideshow Bob rake scene. Yeah.
I was like, man. And it would just vacillate from one awesome thing. Like I already mentioned, I love the suicidal ghost kid. I love the fact that those two twins were like, what are you doing? We're making a Dutch door for Ma. Like they're like cutting a door in the middle of like the weirder the movie got, the more I was in for it. But then when the stupid stuff would happen, I could just take out my phone, like you said, and look up trivia for the movie. And AE would fall asleep for 5 minutes, and I'd wake her up and be like, you missed the ghost kids or whatever. So, we could just take it as it came and enjoy the good parts. I like Joe Alasky a lot. He was likable enough. He kept me interested. Several of the side characters did. And interestingly, we were talking about comedy. The failing, I think, is more of the directing, and obviously the mishmash script, but for Perkins's part, because he also wrote a very successful, I don't know how it was financially, but I'm just talking about craft wise, a very successful murder mystery comedy called The Last of Sheila, if you haven't seen it. It is a freaking masterpiece. It's a murder mystery that takes place on a yacht starring James Coburn and just a whole, oh my God, it's good. You guys should go check it out. And he wrote it, and it's a dark comedy murder mystery. Brilliant. So maybe it's less that he knows how to direct comedy. Right. Yeah, it played at Belcourt and I think sold out. Like tons of people went to see it, and it was a huge success. So I think it's getting a bit of a renaissance now. Overall, I mean, I'll never watch it again.
Sure.
But at this specific historical moment in time, I'm glad I watched this dumb movie.
Yeah.
Was this one, Bradley, that you watched, like you already knew about, or did you kind of discover
my dad had it in his shop. I remembered it.
Okay.
I'd seen it, I think at least I'd seen it once. I remember seeing it. It wasn't one that I watched over and over again. It was just sort of like, I obviously wanted to discuss Parents, and I wanted to discuss Eating Raoul. I was like, well, they're both cannibal comedies. What else could I put in with this? And it was just sort of like, oh yeah, that Lucky Stiff film. And then I kind of IMDb'd it, and it was like, Anthony Perkins directed this?
Yeah.
I was like, what? Okay, let's talk about this. So I was curious to revisit this as well. And it is a truly interesting artifact, because on one hand, it is this Pat Prof script, the guy who wrote Police Academy, which was almost a foundational film to a lot of bad 80s comedy and stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
And you can see in the film, as you guys have all mentioned, there's good stuff in it. There's really funny jokes. I mean, there's one part where he says to, Ike the First, he's like, I could cut back on the Peter Lorre shots. And I was just like, there's like lines in it. I was just like, that is fucking hilarious. But then, and there's a lot of good performances in it too. Donna Dixon, I don't think we've mentioned, she's fantastic in it. She was in a lot of comedies, from Speed Zone to Couch Trip to she's also the dream woman in Wayne's World.
In Wayne's World, right?
Yeah, that was what Amy said. Amy was like, "Oh, it's the foxy lady."
Yeah, she is, and she is foxy. Her voice and the way she looks, I mean, she is just very seductive and absolutely beautiful. And funny. She's got great comic timing. But, you know, and there's those funny bits, like when he's like, oh, I bet your bed is warm. And they're in the, like, you know, horse-drawn carriage. He's like, yeah! You know, I cracked up. I was like, that's funny. He's like, you know, and where Ike's pointing out on his body, and he's like, oh, yeah, I'm always a little shaky on where my chuck is, you know? I'm just like, and as you mentioned, the ghost joke, there are, like, these really funny bits. And then there is this complete 180 where they go into like cartoony slapstick comedy, and you're just like, wait a minute, where did the kind of witty jokes go? Now it's turned into this. I mean, the whole, like, that skiing scene has got to be one of the worst things. But then it's followed by a really funny bit, which is like everybody's asking him about his balls.
right.
And I was like cracking the fuck up about that. And I was just like,
how are your genitals, sir?
And I kept thinking, I was like, wow, if they, as you'd mentioned, this could have been maybe a classic comedy from the 80s if it had just been sort of handled better. And I think I find it so fascinating in a weird way. It's one of those misfires, but there was seeds of something great here.
It got a lot of ideas. It's just they're all kind of going in different directions, I think.
Yeah.
I think, honestly, I confess the biggest laugh. I'm a guy, you know, I live in Orlando now. I've lived in Georgia and Panhandle, Florida, Texas. Anyway, I've lived in the Southeast for a lot of decades. And there's a scene where Ron says to Cynthia, your accent, you're Southern, right? When he said that, I cackled. I'm like, no.
Like, was that a leftover from the script before they
what
cast?
happened? Did somebody forget to tell Donna Dixon that or what? Like, come on.
Oh, how could you tell? It's like she studied how to speak with Gore Vidal or something.
Do people even talk like that anymore? Like, I feel like that died with the 80s. That whole, you know, like you sound like you're withering and dying because you're so poor and rich. Yeah.
What is that called again?
It's like withering and dying.
It's not Atlantic.
The Mid-Atlantic? Is that
the Mid-Atlantic?
Yeah,
like the Thurston Moore.
Or Thurston Howell.
Thurston Howell. That's
Thurston Howell.
They're like Sonic Youth. Oh, Kim, I think we need to put up the big fuzz pedal again.
Oh, my God.
You guys might have seen it. I saw a clip on YouTube somewhere of like a movie from the 30s where they were shooting, and they were, you know, I guess it didn't often happen that they left the camera rolling after cut or something, but the guy's speaking like that. And I don't remember the line, I don't remember the movie. This is a terrible story for me to relate. But as soon as the director yells cut, the guy turns and says something to the director, and that accent is totally gone. So like the Mid-Atlantic just never existed. Like
it wasn't a thing.
It was never a thing. It was just, this is how everybody just kind of collectively assumed movie people should sound. No idea why. It didn't come from anywhere. Yeah.
Oh no, Brad, I was saying you were talking about performances, and all the character actors are great, but I wanted to bring up we had Lee McCloskey, obviously, from Hamburger, playing pretty much the ideal generic 80s rich douchebag as, you know, her first prize to take home to the family before she finds Ron. But that's not the only person from movies we've watched before. Ma is actually the character's sister from Eyes of Fire. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah, she's in a lot of stuff.
She's in tons of stuff.
She's in so many movies. Yeah. This is another one of those 6 degrees of our show this year.
Yeah, there's tons of. Mm-hmm.
I don't know why. Just character actors in the 80s getting in all these weird bad comedies. Yeah, and this movie, like, I think it was released on DVD, but you know, it's completely fallen into obscurity. Not that it needs to be resurrected or anything. Like, people, I wouldn't even suggest clamoring out to see this, but it is very interesting because I feel like Anthony Perkins did this after he did Psycho 3. which honestly to me, I like Psycho 3. I think it's actually a very effective horror film. It's got some fantastic sequences, especially that scene with the body and the ice and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's talking to the police, and that is so suspenseful and so well done. Yeah. Well, I prefer Psycho 2, but I think Psycho 3 has a lot of merit and a lot of great stuff. And so he had a lot of promise as a director, and I think he really second guessed himself after this.
Because he didn't direct another movie after this, right?
This is it. This took, I think, the wind out of his sails, because this was
that's a shame.
Kind of a failure in a lot of ways. Didn't do much box office wise. It didn't really do much on the home video market wise. Just never became like a cult film or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, but
not like Hamburger.
Yeah, right. Yeah, everybody's clamoring, especially Waylon. He's got a poster of it now.
I do. Yeah, right over the bed was the first thing I see in the morning.
That's right. Right next to the strap-on. All right. Yeah. So
that's under the pillow.
Amy's gonna hate this episode. All right. Any final thoughts on Lucky Stiff?
I have a fun note. I have Family Hoedown, scariest thing since Kirk Cameron Christmas movie.
I really think this might have been the scene that inspired that in the Kirk Cameron Christmas movie. So, yeah. Well, that's a great note to end on. So you can stream Lucky Stiff for free on YouTube. There was a DVD release of the film, but it's out of print now. It's never been released on Blu-ray. YouTube's kind of your best bet at the moment until someplace like Tubi or something picks it up. All right, well, from an unsuspecting Christmas dinner with descendants of the Donner Party to the dark underbelly of a 1950s suburban family, it's time for Parents.
Eating at young Michael Lemley.
You're not scared of your room, are you?
Michael, the cellar's dark. Everything's dark at night.
His parents think Michael's problem is in his head. But Michael knows it's on his plate.
What are we eating?
Leftovers, honey.
Leftovers from what?
From the refrigerator.
We had leftovers every day since we moved here. I'd like to know what they were before they were leftovers.
Before that, they were leftovers to be.
Michael, there's nothing to be frightened of.
Now, there's a new name for terror. Parents.
As Parents for our listeners.
I would be delighted. Parents is a movie directed by Bob Balaban about a young boy in like you said, a suburban 1950s household who begins to suspect that his parents are cannibals. And we get to see the movie almost exclusively from his perspective as he watches upsetting scenes of them cooking and savoring meat, and just lots of just really unsettling meat close-ups and meat shots and cooking shots. While his parents, Randy Quaid and Mary Beth Hurd, playing his parents. The boy is also meeting with a psychiatrist at school, played by Sandy Dennis, and he strikes up an awkward friendship with a new girl in his class by the name of Sheila Zellner. I don't remember that actor's name. She's like 14 or something. I wouldn't know. And we follow along. We get to see what he sees and also what he thinks he sees. And it's never 100% concrete which is which. And I have to say, I fucking love this movie. I love this movie so much. I loved it the first time I saw it, and I loved it when I watched it at midnight last night in preparation for the talk today. It ticks a lot of my boxes. It is weird. It is a movie that definitely plays with reality without hand-holding you through. Like, there's no point at which anybody on screen ever says for certain, oh, that was a dream, this was reality, or anything like that. You know, you just get to kind of float along with Michael, that's the name of the kid's character, with what he's going through, and all the uncertainty he has is all the uncertainty we end up with in the audience. I feel like there is a dearth of movies willing to do that. I think that there's a lot of movies that want to play with reality, but they're also kind of self-conscious, and they want to let you know exactly, at the end, exactly how it all turned out, you know, and this movie is not interested in that. It's all on you to figure out how it goes. And there are some really surreal scenes and some kind of dreamlike logic and some contradictory scenes, and probably my favorite Randy Quaid performance I've ever witnessed.
Yes.
By far.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's
love
incredible.
it, top to bottom. I mean, I guess that's everything that it's about, right? Is the kid thinking his parents might be cannibals. And, I guess spoiler, he kind of maybe he finds out that they are, except when you kind of roll back over the scenes in your head after the movie's over, you realize there's never a concrete point where somebody says, yes, we are cannibals and we eat people. It's all just laid in suggested in your brain, and it kind of worms its way around in there. But you could, it's a real kind of unreliable narrator movie because he's a kid. This guy Michael, I don't even know how old he's supposed to be. I don't know how old kids are. Like, I've read that the older you get, the younger you think everyone you see is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I assume he's like 5, but that can't be true. He's got to be 10 or 11.
Probably 10 or 12.
He's like 9 or 10, I'd say.
Not 10 probably. Yeah.
Yeah. He still seems to be in elementary school as opposed to like middle school or something. So yeah, I would say like 9 or something.
So much stuff going on in this movie that just I think rewards rewatching early on. Like, it's easy to from the description that I was given and from reading the back of the Blu-ray cover or whatever, it's easy to assume that Michael is the sane character in insane world kind of trope, except there are things he says, there's this scene when he starts his new class, the teacher says, well, when we have a new student, we like to learn a new thing. Michael, what can you tell us? And he's like, if you kill a bird and clean its bones and then boil the bones and char them down.
It's a cat. Yeah, if you kill a cat.
Oh, it's a cat. Right. If you kill a cat and then you boil its bones,
you can become invisible or something.
You can become invisible. That's right. You crush the bones. Then you can become invisible. Yeah. And you're like, wait a minute. Where's the kernel of sanity in this? Like, this is the guy we're supposed to be,
But of course she does say, that's inappropriate. Who told you that? and he's like, my dad. So you're like, oh shit! So is the dad really crazy, or is the dad just scaring him?
Right, exactly. Right. And the dad works at a company called, I love it. It's called Toxico, and he describes this project he's working on. It's basically Agent Orange. It's a defoliant you drop from the sky. So that's what dad does. Mom's a homemaker with bulletproof hair. Like, her hair is done up in this kind of updo. Curls on the side of her head, and it's very severe, and she's kind of tightly wound and smiling all the time. I guess the closest sort of representative of the new wavy kind of movement at the time is the character of the psychiatrist from school, Millie Dew, which I guess is supposed to be a play on mildew, but I don't know why. But her name is, I don't know what that's all about. Yeah, and
only Bob Balaban knows.
Only Bob Balaban knows. Yeah, exactly. But God, I love this movie so much. This movie, not just the weirdness of it. There's definitely commentary going on here. There's commentary about kind of a dark rot at the kernel of that suburban, clean living lifestyle that we picture the people of the 50s living in. I love that feeling that there's something kind of sinister and sick in the middle of the 50s Norman Rockwell families. There's something a little more universal. I think Michael's experience, sort of in an absurd kind of way, reminds me of the way that we all kind of learn as children. There's this point where we kind of learn where our parents' secret lives we don't know about, and it's not even it doesn't necessarily mean that they're all cannibals or murderers or anything like that. It just means that at some point you realize you don't know everything about your parents, and it's just a disconcerting experience to have,
right.
And I love seeing that. And then there's also just some crazy shit. There's a point where Michael is in a pantry watching his mom through the slats on the pantry door, and these sausages start curling down from above him on the shelf and sort of wrap around his neck, and he starts getting kind of choked by sausages. And then mom opens up the door and it's like, dinner's going to be ready at 6,
Yeah.
It's fantastic. I love everything about this movie.
Yeah, it's a true gem for sure. Waylon, what did you think of Parents? Was this one you'd seen before?
Actually, I had seen Parents before, although somewhat recently, which is strange because this is like Eating Raoul, actually a film that I remember seeing all the time at the video store. And for some reason I didn't rent it. Maybe because it scared me too much, because I remember actually laying around with my sister at night discussing whether our parents might be serial killers. Maybe they were like convicts on the lam. Like we'd already hit that point by like 7. Like
hitting
who
too
are
close
these
to
people?
home.
Yeah, I'm like, ugh. And I liked it the first time, and I liked it the second time too. One of the things that surprised me when I watched it was I didn't realize it was a period piece. I don't know if we covered that. It takes place in the 50s, and it opens, and it's so great. With the overhead shot of like just the 50s suburbs. The family's driving this great Aqua. Is it like a Chrysler?
It was an Oldsmobile.
Oldsmobile, yes.
Or something.
And they're playing. It was a cherry blossom white and gently laced too, which is like one of my favorite 50s rock songs. I was a big 50s rock nut when I was a little kid. But yeah, Parents is great. We've already kind of covered it, but yeah, it's one of those films where you never really quite know what's happening. I always feel like it's slightly clunky. Like I feel like the kid. It's the only movie he ever made, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he's perfectly cast like on a visual sense because the kid has got this really haunting, spooky face. You know, he's got these big doe eyes, and he just kind of like it looks like gravity's trying to like pull his mouth down a little bit. He's spooky, but he doesn't have a lot of places to go. So it's weird because he's the lead character, but it's hard to completely relate to him outside of the intellectual concept of not trusting your parents, just because it's hard to know what he's thinking. And, you know, is this kid nuts? And it always feels a little bit like maybe this whole thing is all in his head, like we've already covered. You know, those dream scenes are like both amazing and oddly staged in a few instances. The sausage scene I didn't like as much as the blood coming out from the top of the refrigerator. I thought that was fucking super cool. I love when the kid sneaks into Toxico at night and sees his dad presumably cutting out the liver of a cadaver to be cooked with later. And you're not sure if that really happened because I was like, why would the kid go there at night? And why is he there at night? What are the odds that they'd all be there at the same time?
Is it so easy to sneak in? Is it,
Right.
Yeah, he just slid right under the fence.
Under the fence.
Right under the
just
fence.
went in there.
And I've never been more tempted to be a vegetarian than watching this film. All the close-ups of the meat, they're always just like, it looks like gizzards. Yeah, it's just like frying and fat. You know, I can just feel myself saturated with the grease and the heaviness of it. It's just gnarly. And the contrast is great because they do a good job of presenting this beautiful, picturesque 1950s family life, and it just gradually gets more and more insidious as it goes along, you know, and especially because Randy Quaid, you know, is excellent in this, and so is who plays the mom, Mary Beth Hurd. They both come off as like loving, sweet parents at first, and they continue to be so throughout the film, even in like the most horrible moments.
Even in like the ultimate climax, the reason I loved how at the end. Oh, okay, so we're gonna end up in it anyway. The father goes to kill the son because he stabs him in the shoulder with a knife or something like that, and while he's doing that, the mother ends up kind of killing the father because she loves her son so much. Even in this moment when like they're existentially threatened by her son's distaste for their cannibal lifestyle, like they're going to be in trouble. They're, you know, the townspeople are going to come burn them, is what the father says. But still, she just can't see her son be hurt, so she ends up killing the father. And like, I don't know what it says about me, but I found that kind of touching, kind of sweet.
Even though mom and dad clearly like they're so caught up in themselves, they know next to nothing about their kid. Like she still has this maternal, because there's that whole like, oh, 2:45, we'll have to remember that. Like they don't even know when he gets home from school. There's like these funny little, you know, moments, or like her with Sandy Dennis. Like what are his father and her son do together? And she's like, oh, things, things, normal father and son. But you're right. There's that ending where she clearly does love her son. And also Michael and Lily are obviously still, despite him being the way he is, they clearly have a love language, and it's eating human flesh, if that's what's really going on here. Or just eating meat, or, and having sex in the living room.
On top of what looks like plastic or something. I was like, what? Right. Like, man, all the living room sex has to stop once you have a kid. It's just even I know that. I also love they keep cutting back to them cooking the meat and the barbecue, and Randy and they've got it down to a system where Randy Quaid's got the
like a salt shaker on a stick. And
his wife's like spritzing it, keep it moist. That's great.
So good. I love that shot. There's so many creative camera, like creative camera work in this movie. Like the scene toward the end where Nick and Michael are sitting at the table. It's the big right up to the climax scene where
he's tied up.
Yeah, he's like sitting at the chair, and he's like, you're gonna have to eat this meat, But while they're both sitting at this table, they're both sitting at the dinner table, and the camera is mounted on the table, and the table itself is just slowly spinning.
Yeah. It's on a turntable.
It's on a big turntable, and there's no comment or anything about it. It's just like, this is a stylistic thing. I think that. I don't know. I don't feel like I see neat things like that anymore, or not very often anymore. Just this kind of weird, unsettling camera move that doesn't necessarily make any sense in the scene, but it looks really cool to watch.
I thought it did make sense in the scene, actually.
Yeah, like the disorientation.
The way I felt like you'd put you in that kid's perspective.
Yeah,
it's like this sort of denouement like moment with the parents. Like they're going to try to get him to eat meat.
They're going to get him to
humans at that point. So it's so effective to me. And it's really creative. I don't know if I've seen a turntable used like that. You often see those in like car commercials.
Yeah.
Well, they do it in like movies a lot now, like with the 180, but they always do it for these like ramped up emotional scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that that's actually like a quiet, slow burn scene with the spinning wheel. And maybe that's the difference, is now everyone does everything and it's really like the Las Vegas version of any shot that they're doing. Everyone's just so excited. But that's like I've seen they thought of that because they're like, this will serve the emotion better. So I don't know, it worked better for me than a lot, because I actually hate those kind of shots normally. I hate the 180-degree spinning thing normally, because it always just feels melodramatic. But this felt creepy, Ooh.
I mean, it's different from that, because you're talking about like where the dolly track is a circular track around people at the table and stuff, which they actually do that in the film as well. But that was even very well handled, the way that was blocked and choreographed. But this is very different. This kind of turntable shot, I thought it was a unique approach to that, the tone of that scene.
Yeah, I can't remember seeing anything like that that immediately comes to mind that does the same thing.
And this is Bob Balaban's directorial debut.
Wait, was it really?
Yes, longtime character actor. This is clearly some kind of like dream project of his. And talk about knocking it out of the fucking park.
Seriously.
Wow, it's
oh
absolutely...
my God, I just realized who that is.
Yeah. Everybody knows who Bob Balaban. Maybe you don't know his name, but
He's
know
one of
his
those
face.
that guys.
Yes. Not to be mixed up with Charles Martin Smith, because I think a lot of people in their heads mix up Charles Martin Smith and Bob Balaban. But no, they're very
Philistines. Philistines would do that.
Indeed.
Get your that guys straight, people.
That's
Come
right.
on.
That's right. So, but Bob Balaban, longtime character actor, and directed quite a bit of stuff after this as well. But yeah, this is his directorial debut.
I mean, I guess that makes, I don't know, that makes sense. Like, you're gonna launch onto the scene, right? You're gonna, I don't know, I can see this being a real passion thing for him. He does the normal stuff, like he'll show up in the as a side character in some romantic comedy, some I don't know, Julia Roberts' father in some movie or something like that. I don't know if that ever happened, but but he also kind of does these out there movies. Like he was a big character in Altered States with William Hurt. Yeah. So,
or Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Right.
He always often plays like a scientist. And of course he has a long established history with the Christopher Guest troupe.
Yes.
I often think of his character in A Mighty Wind, which is really great.
I think of his character in A Mighty Wind every time I'm directing a movie. I'm like, that's me. What if the lights fall down from the ceiling and kill an actor? Am I liable?
Great. What other thoughts? I think we kind of interjected on your train of thought there. What did you have some other thoughts on Parents?
Oh, well, I mean, yeah.
Duh.
Yeah, I fucking love Parents. I probably saw it first when I was a young lad, and
whippersnapper.
Honestly, always been really kind of jealous of this movie, because it's almost like exactly the same kind of movie that I would make. This is almost like something that fell right out of my brain and onto celluloid. I don't know if this is true, but I've read that Ken Russell has called this like Bob Balaban's Blue Velvet, and that he actually likes this more than Blue Velvet.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if that's true, but if it is, I can totally see it, knowing what Ken Russell's like. And yeah, I could definitely see that. Much like Steven said, it's definitely deals with, the dark underbelly of suburbia, even beyond just the unfaithful narrative and Michael's fear of his own parents and fear of the unknown of what they do at night and what am I? There's such, parents being such mysterious beings. Love how that's played with in the 50s aesthetic and the art design, because whenever you see the parents, everything's all pastel and Art Deco, and then when you see Michael, everything's all gloomy and like Edgar Allan Poe looking, like just even in the art direction, everything's really paid attention to visually in this movie. There's a lot of fun Red Scare stuff going on in there too. The people are always going to be watching you, and we don't know if that's because they really are cannibals or if it's because his dad, doing other shady shit at Toxico that they can't let people know about. There's a lot of other messages going on. One of my favorite moments is where Michael confronts his mom and is like, "Okay, but where does all this meat come from?" From the refrigerator. and that's just the answer. Like the whole message of don't stop questioning where the sausage comes from, literally, or how the sausage is made. That's another thing this movie's fucking amazing with.
My friend's dad used to actually give my friend that line in high school. He was always like, "Dad, what am I having for lunch?" And he'd go, "Good stuff, son. Good stuff." And it would enrage my friend so much.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff, son. Yeah, the cast is pitch perfect down to although I do agree with what Waylon said, the kid is just kind of cast on visual merit alone. And he's the main character and he doesn't have a lot of agency. We're just seeing this world through his eyes and he only reacts. Which, but in this kind of movie, I feel like that's okay. That's all he's meant to do.
Yeah.
I love how, particularly the score, the way how it goes really creepy and unsettling, even when just normal shit's happening. Like it'll go from a 50s score into this weird, haunting, droning. Even when Sheila and Michael are just talking at school and not even saying anything creepy, it'll just go to this weird, like gut-wrenching, droning, haunting thing. It's like, just to like unsettle. There's always something going on underneath.
Yeah. And it's Badalamenti. So, I mean, by having him, and I think that helps kind of with the correlation between Blue Velvet and this, you have to wonder if Balaban saw Blue Velvet and said, because he obviously had the idea for this 1950s, something underneath, the perfect white picket fence sort of world. And he probably chose Badalamenti based on that. And boy, talk about a Lynchian feel. This is big time in spades.
No doubt. And I'm sure that's why. And then when I saw I was like, oh, it's this like sausage mambo scene. And I was like, is that a Tito Puente song? And then in the credits, I'm like, oh, that was Badalamenti too. The Meatloaf Mambo was also Badalamenti.
Oh,
Wow. That's so talented.
So yeah, this movie, I love it. I mean, it's just fucking great.
I'm gonna alienate like anybody who's listening to this who's thinking, hey, that Steven guy, he sounds like a solid dude. I like his opinions. I'm gonna alienate all of them right now and just put my flag down and say, yeah, actually, I do like this better than Blue Velvet. It's
great.
Like it's
go for it.
It's maybe more fun to watch. Like Blue Velvet's great. Like I love Blue Velvet. There's no question about that. It's a fantastic movie. It's it's grim. I don't know. I feel like there's a funness to this one, even though it's kind of hiding under this sordid, meaty, toxic kind of vibe to it. There's like kind of a funness to it. There's playfulness in here. Everything about the psychiatrist character is kind of a little tongue in cheek, I think. Like she has this statue on her desk. I guess it's a piece of art where like when she's talking to Michael in her office, we keep seeing just in the background, there's a statue and I fixated on it at one point. It's kind of a rusty metal statue of a man, real kind of contorted, like old, I don't know, like pre-Columbian looking or something like that. Except
nails.
The nails.
Yeah.
It's got like dozens of nails driven through it. Yeah. And I'm like, what the hell? And then there's the music, like the scores. You guys were just talking about the score, and the score is fantastic. But all the needle drop in the movie is delightful too. Like the end of the movie when we end on, and I'd love to talk about it, but we end on Michael lying in the bed at his grandma's house because his parents are now dead, and she drops this sandwich on the table next to him before she walks out, her and grandpa. And it is the most horrific looking meat sandwich that has ever been assembled. And he's just kind of staring at this pile of glistening meat. And then we cut to one-eyed, one-horn flying purple people eater. And you get this kind of sitcom-esque bit where the actors come out of the front door of the house and their
like
names
Father
come
Knows
up.
Best or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's got this kind of funness to it too. And I don't know. If I have to pick one movie about the secret horror lying underneath 50 Suburbia, I'm going to go with this one.
Nice.
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, I've always loved this movie. It was one. It's interesting. My dad used to get these screener tapes before he would buy the movie or whatever, and those would actually stay at our house. And this was one of those screeners. So I actually watched this all the fucking time. And I remember like the little like subtitle popping up on the screener tape. This is not for rental or resale or whatever. So, but yeah, that's my association with the film. So I saw this a lot, quite a few times. And it's really influenced me as a filmmaker quite a lot, much like you, Gray. I mean, there's so much like the way Balaban approached each scene and like the tone of things and the style, the over stylistic kind of mise en scène and all that stuff. I mean, that's how I approach films and stuff too. I don't know if I'll ever make anything this good, but that is always kind of my goal. This is a huge inspiration for me. You know, those kinds of compositions and cinematography are just like hugely influential on me. And he's got like those kind of creative transitions that I love, you know, like where he jumps into the bed full of blood and then like the red marinade and stuff and he's sticking his finger in, and it's like so good. You know, it's interesting too, because I remember like when I was a kid, don't think I knew about anything about mid-century modern furniture, like before I'd seen this film. And I remember being absolutely fascinated by it from this film. And I've kind of been obsessed with it since. Like, I'm still like, that is the coolest fucking furniture I've ever seen. I need a boomerang table and a boomerang fucking bar. And you know, it's like
real life Jetsons.
It's so cool. Yeah, I just think it's like the pinnacle of cool furniture and stuff.
I agree. Actually, every time I watch this, I'm like, I need a living room like that. I need an Eames chair. And
totally. I love it. It's interesting too, because like a lot of kids, you know, I think about this because I'm a dad now, and it's like, I can't help but think like a lot of kids have issues with food, and a lot of kids specifically have issues with eating meat. And even though they may not grow up to be vegetarians, until they're like maybe 8 or 9 years old, they may only eat like noodles or things like that, and like food that is not like, they're not going to eat a hamburger and stuff. I mean, my kid's a little bit like that. He'll eat chicken nuggets, but he's like, he's really kind of, he seems like skittish about a lot of food and stuff. And I can't help but think that that's just like in the DNA of this movie. And also like the dad, man, holy shit, there's some creepy scenes. Like this is like I don't know if you guys have heard of gentle parenting. This is like a poster child film for gentle parenting. Like, be nice to your kids. Don't scare the living shit out of them with your weird fucking shit. Man, I mean, right off the get-go, like where he comes up, he's like, well, you know, the darkest place is inside here.
Right. He like taps his temple.
So good.
It's so creepy. And then it's like the way it cuts to like him carrying him down the hallway with that like kind of dolly shot. And it's just, I mean, it's eloquent and yet menacing and terrifying all at the same time. It's so effective. Yeah, it's I mean, I think you guys have really covered so much about this film that I love. I loved how nice the grandparents are. And they just seem like the nicest. So nice. And then it turns out they're his parent.
Right.
The
It's the paternal,
parent,
right.
Because the mom, they say that in that big confrontation scene, just like, you know, well, she got a taste for it. She didn't like it at first either. And it's just like, now I love it. You know,
it's fucking, that shot of her saying that gave me the hair on my neck stood up.
For sure.
Yeah.
And it's weird too, because I actually think the mom like means to be a good mom. You know, where the dad has some real fucking like anger issues and like control issues and like I mean, outside of him just being a fucking cannibal. If he is a cannibal, I don't fucking know.
Right. That's my favorite part is you walk away from this, you watch this 10,000 times and you're still like, were they cannibals?
Totally ambiguous.
I'll say this, even if they are, they're at least not killing people. They're at least getting the bodies from Toxico.
Yeah. If you need a body, Toxico.
It's funny. The way what you're talking about the dad. Jen said to me this morning, we were talking about this because we just watched it again last night. She was saying that it would make sense. I don't know that it would change the reading of the movie at all, but she was saying it would make sense to her if Nick wasn't actually Michael's father. Because there's this one there's this one part in their big confrontation where. It might have been before that, actually, where Nick is saying, "You don't look like me. You don't act like me."
That's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. He says that exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You don't look like me. You don't act like me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know what it does to change the meaning of the movie, but it does. He does have sort of this weird animosity toward his son. And is it all just about eating meat? Or maybe it's and I don't know if this is a universal experience, but when you kind of realize maybe one of your parents doesn't maybe like you very much.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or maybe just wondering. As a kid, sometimes maybe you wonder, the first time you get in trouble or something, you're like, oh my God, does my dad hate me? And then that turns into you sit alone thinking about that too long and it turns into these dark thoughts in your head. So maybe that's just part of what the kid is dealing with right now. Hopefully not a lot of kids wonder whether their parents hate them.
Well, I wonder back then if they did, because a lot of times that, during this sort of primetime patriarchal norms, 1950s households, the moms were still staying at home. They were the caretakers for the children. The dad would come home, have his scotch, eat his weird fucking meatloaf with pineapple on it, fucking side of Jello.
Yeah.
And, and
want to be left alone.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, I think we kind of alluded to it in that one scene where she's talking to the guidance counselor. He doesn't do anything with his kids. He doesn't have a relationship with his kid. This was not uncommon back then.
Yeah.
And that Balaban is really touching on one of the deep, dark things about the 1950s sort of parental relationship with their kids. The mom was there providing love and guidance and everything. And the dad was he was just providing money and didn't have a relationship with the children, except to enforce punishment.
Right.
And it's also not just Michael. There's, Sheila's going through some shit too, as evidenced by what she thinks life is like. Like when they burst in and she screams, "Let's play house." And then it's really an adorable scene, but they're acting quote unquote like adults. And it's like she immediately runs and starts guzzling wine and throwing eggs into the let's cook food. And then let's guzzle wine together. And now you take your shirt off because she's used to seeing her dad get clothes out of the dryer naked in the middle of the night because her parents are weird swingers. It's all this weird.
Yeah, and she seems to be abused as well because she keeps going on about you won't get punished. We can go to a place where you'll never get punished.
Where you'll never get punished.
Yeah, her character's pretty damn dark, man.
It's all dark.
It's all pretty dark.
Really well cast too. I thought she had some of the best line reading of the film too.
She's fantastic.
Far beyond her years. Yeah.
Yeah.
She says she tells Michael, "Oh, I got held back here," and he said, "Why?" And she's like, "Some things," and then that's it.
There's so much ambiguity in this film, throughout. It's a great one to revisit to try to figure more of it out if you ever can.
This is a I don't know, this may be going to be kind of icky to say, but I like the scene where Sheila comes over to play house. As a child, you reach a point before you hit sexuality, right? Pre-sexuality, you still start to kind of have these weird affections that don't make any sense yet because you're not in that point of your life yet. So those confused feelings mixed with what the norms of relationship that she gets from her parents, from seeing her parents, manifests into this, like you were saying, this just bonkers house play scene where she's chugging wine and throwing eggs around there, but then she crawls into a freezer and at first it gets really icky when she tells him to take his shirt off. You're like, oh God, where's this going? But then, she's too young to know what sex is. So the next thing is she just like splashes him with wine, you know?
I thought that scene was incredibly sweet. It was all it was all just children exploring. Like everybody plays. Also, everybody plays doctor and stuff.
Of course.
These aren't adults.
It's very innocent. Yeah.
Right. It's not sexualized.
It's still there.
It builds on their characters because you do see that they're she's recreating her home life with all the alcoholism and stuff, and I thought that was super real.
But yeah, you're right. She did a fantastic job.
I love she had one of my favorite lines too, where they were saying, "What did you learn this summer?" And she said, "I learned that if you make a martini with an onion, it's called a Gibson."
It's called a Gibson.
I know, that was so great. It almost robbed the humor from him saying his line about the cats.
The cat bones.
Her line was so 50s and so hilarious. And she's like, my parents are alcoholics.
Right, but it's perfect too because everyone's parents are alcoholics in the not everyone, but I think majority of them.
Right.
Spalding Gray had that whole thing. He talked about how his mother described cocktail hour as life just being like cocktail hour. And that was what he grew up with.
That's like that was the thing. Like you come home and pour yourself a scotch. It doesn't matter. Like this is the first thing. I don't know. I always kind of thought it was like maybe because work life was intolerable at the time. There's no good jobs. I'm gonna say I'm after this. I'm gonna go to a secret tiki bar and drink Mai Tais all night. So.
I've had a variety of beers for the past couple of days. Fun story. I actually went to go buy beer on Monday night, and the grocery store was out.
Oh, that's a statement.
I'm not surprised.
Yes.
On election day, I went to the takeout pizza joint and the liquor store back to back because we were like, it's going to be a long night. And both were slammed. There were crowds.
No doubt.
Wish there was a Xanax bar.
That sounds like a plan. Let's open a Xanax bar. I think America's ready for it.
I remember there's this comic, Doug Stanhope. I remember he was doing a bit one time, and he drinks. I really like his comic. I've seen him a few times. He was doing he was drinking, and he was talking about people talking about his drinking or whatever. And he's like, if this was an ecstasy bar, I'd order a large and have a glass of water and be in a much better mood right now,
It's true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, any final thoughts on the magnificent masterpiece that is Parents?
Delightful. Just delightful. Love this movie.
It's incredible. It's a real gem.
Love
smart.
The mix of like I don't want to beat this horse to death, but like the meat scenes are so viscerally upsetting.
Yeah.
And I love the way they just meld into this movie, like this perfect, like you could talk about the Art Deco, living room and pastels and 50s aesthetic, and here's a couple of sliced open, sizzling kidneys in a frying pan,
and it's like right off the bat that that meat-o-vision POV of him walking. One of the first shots in the movie. It's like
meat-o-vision. I love that.
Yeah. Next title for a film project.
I'm gonna run out and trademark that.
Laid on in meat-o-vision.
Make it one of those fake production companies you put in front of your movies. Meat-o-vision.
Meat-o-vision.
Who needs 3 dimensions when you got meat-o-vision? Am I gonna get pink eye? It's like
Pink Eye Productions would be good, actually. I would. I will
Conjunctivitis.
I don't want to think about the logo for that one, Wayne.
I can't open my.
I'm plotting it already.
Yeah.
Pink text with little yellow crusty stuff dribbling out.
God. There it is. There it is.
There it is.
Yep.
There it is. Well, that's as good a place to end on as any. All right. Pink eye.
Maybe 1 minute too late, actually, it's fine.
All right, folks, you can stream Parents for free on Tubi. There was a Blu-ray available that is currently out of print, but you can still find copies of that out there. You can still get it. You can still get it for not too crazy expensive. So if you want to get it on Blu-ray, probably now's your chance. All right. Did we have a favorite film this month? Our amazing guest, Steven, did you have a favorite film?
Yeah, it's tight. I will say I loved Eating Raoul, but Lucky Stiff, just not kidding. No, Parents. For me, it was Parents. I love Eating Raoul. Eating Raoul is a movie that appeals to my brain very well. Parents is a movie that gets me in the gut. Like it just boils up from the inside. I love it so much.
Probably because it's cannibal meat. That's probably
yeah. It doesn't sit well, right?
Yeah. Should come with some Tums.
Waylon, what was your favorite?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Eating Raoul for me. I love Parents too, but Eating Raoul is definitely kind of my sweet spot, like weird, scruffy indie, John Waters adjacent kind of thing. Yeah. Second time, I liked it even more. Probably watch it a third time.
It's a classic. What about you, Gray?
I think this is literally the hardest decision I've made on the show thus far. Obviously, between Eating Raoul and Parents, but I'm gonna go with Parents because it's
photo finish.
Yeah, it's kind of everything I want out of low budget filmmaking. Yeah, and again, like I said, it makes me jealous that it's like in some alternate universe I didn't make it myself. So, yeah.
I get that.
I feel the same way. Yeah, this seems like a film I would make in a way. I'm right there with you, Gray. This is truly a Sophie's choice between Eating Raoul and Parents.
Poor Lucky Stiff.
And that's why I'm going to pick Sophie's choice, even though we didn't discuss the film. I'm gonna go with Parents just because, like, Eating Raoul, like I will constantly revisit and laugh every time I watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Parents is like so near and dear to like everything that I love aesthetically in like filmmaking and like just the mise en scène of it and all that pretentious shit.
All that Medo-vision.
All the Medo-vision of it. Yes. Medo-sin.
How do you say Medo-vision in French? Then we'll make it
Meat en scène. Yeah, it's glorious, and I don't think enough people have seen it, so I would love to champion it. So yeah, definitely gonna go with Parents.
It was funny. I guess like Tubi, we watched it and watched the ads, and a lot of the ads were like for like child care services and like child products because it's called Parents, I guess.
Right.
And Tubi's going, okay, it's a movie about parents. Let's show them some diaper ads or something.
Perfect. Oh my god,
that's amazing.
Algorithm fail.
The limits.
Yes. AI. Yeah, indeed. All right. Well, Steven, thank you so much for joining us for this delicious discussion. This has been amazing.
Delicious discussion.
So BizarroLand's coming up next month. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So tickets are on sale right now. It's gonna be December 12th through the 15th. That's Thursday through Sunday. The movies are going to be screening at the theater in Orlando that is closest to the airport. It's called Epic Theaters at Lee Vista. Plenty of details. Anybody, you can find us on Film Freeway. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram. You can find us online, BizarroLandFilm.com. The one big thing I need to shout from the rooftops is that, God damn it, there is one Z in BizarroLand. There's just one Z. Yeah. Everyone wants to put two Z's in there when they go. They're like, "Oh, I tried to find your festival on Film Freeway. I couldn't find it." I'm like, "Well, how'd you spell it? B-I-Z-Z." All right, there you go. Stop. It's just the one Z. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. We got 11 different programs, 6 features, 49 shorts. A couple of parties we're doing. I'm also taking. This is just for the filmmakers in the audience. Whenever filmmakers come to the festival, I always do like a secret filmmaker outing with them that is designed specifically to inspire a bunch of FOMO and make other people feel bad about not coming. In previous years, I've taken them mini golfing. I took them to Gatorland, which I think is about the most Florida experience you can have. Yeah. This year, I'm not going to tell you what it is because it's still secret. But after it's over, it's you'll see. Wow, that was a lot of fun.
Awesome. That's amazing. amazing. That's amazing. I love.
That's great.
I love that you're doing that for filmmakers. Just because, man, it takes so much to make these films and to then travel and all that stuff and submissions. And so when you get in,
submission fees and shit. Yeah. Another thing, if you get in, BizarroLand filmmakers enjoy a lifetime 1 movie waiver code. So I love like that's the whole reason I created the fest is I want to hang out with these weirdos and celebrate their movies. So I try to make it as fun for the filmmakers who come as possible. And I really, really want to stress that if you're a filmmaker who gets in and you don't come, you should feel super, super bad about it.
Awesome. Well, that sounds like an incredible film festival you put together, and congratulations on all the success you've had with it. Wishing you the best of success next month with it, and keep us up to date. Let us know how the outing goes. I'm curious where you guys end up. Well, thank you again. It has been a real pleasure having you on.
Yeah, I've enjoyed the hell out of this. Thanks for giving me an excuse to rewatch Parents and Eating Raoul, and thanks, for making me watch Lucky Stiff.
I think you just took the words out of all of our mouths. I mean, even mine. I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? I never needed to rewatch this fucking movie. So I'm just a glutton for punishment. So, and y'all are along for the ride. So, all right. Well, coming up next month, we finish off our first year and first season of the show with a discussion about PG-rated animation. We'll discuss Ralph Bakshi's Fire and Ice from 1983, Rock and Rule from 1984, and Star Chaser, The Legend of Orin from 1985. Joining us for that discussion will be filmmaker and professional puppeteer Adrian Rose Leonard. In addition, Gray, Waylon, and I will be picking our favorite films that we discussed over the course of the year. As a bonus episode, we will also be running an Audience Choice Award where fans of the show will get to vote for their favorite films we discussed over the course of our first season. All right, until next time, be kind as we rewind.